Hello all, this is James Johnson, aka Sulfurblade, and I want to talk to you about Game of Thrones. It's one of my all-time favorite shows. Um, Huge fan. Just, I love this show. I've always loved this show. I think one of the reasons I've tended to really enjoy the show is because I've never read any of the books. And it's easy to avoid the book versus show argument if you've never read the books. And so for me, the shows have been a joy to watch. Um, I I watched basically from the first season all the way through to this season, feeling like maybe there might have been a few ups and downs in enjoyment factor here and there, marginally, but it was a pretty even keel, I felt, through to this season. Um, I quite enjoyed Game of Thrones. No matter what this show put in front of me, no matter where the story went, I enjoyed the ride. And then this season happened. I'm not sure how, not sure what to say. So episode 1 was episode 2 was but then episode 3 is where things really started to go downhill like a rocket. I Episode 3 for me is a strange paradox. So after I got done initially watching the show, I kind of had a feeling like it was one of the most powerful Game of Thrones episodes I had ever watched. So um, it was just nonstop action, and at first I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it until my brain caught up and I realized what had really transpired in that show. And then I really started to not enjoy it. There were some serious problems. Like, we send this wave riding in against the undead with their flames lit, and I understand it was for the complete visual satisfaction of watching the flames go out. And because the flames are going out, we can start to lose hope. But why did you send that charge in the first place? What was the point of sending those people to their death? Don't understand. Don't get it. Pointless. Um, so then we had a bunch of fighting, and the fighting was the fighting. Then we get to some of the portions that matter. We get to Jon Snow facing off on the battlefield versus the Undead King. And it was just kind of like this screw you moment. We're just gonna completely cheat, and we're not gonna give Jon Snow his moment in the sun. We're just gonna resurrect everything in the world because Why not? I found that I don't know. It's just there's just something so wrong about it. And then once you start to get past the fact that it happened, now John is still trying to get to this undead king dude. He knows where he needs to go. He needs to get to Brandon, and he's trying to get there, but everywhere he goes, he keeps running into the undead dragon. Well, this is Jon Snow. This is our glorious um, hero of the show, the brave knightly warrior who's brave and is going to stand up to evil. And instead of fight the dragon, he constantly hides behind pillars and rocks while screaming at it. But yet, Jaime Lannister, in a few episodes before, well, I don't know, I forget what episode it was, picks up a spear, runs with his horse across the battlefield in an attempt to charge the dragon to, basically lance it before he gets saved by his cutthroat bodyguard. But anyway, so Jon is supposed to be as heroic and as brave as Jaime Lannister, right? If it was Jaime Lannister there, he would have got up and attempted to have done something about it. I'm sure. But Jon doesn't get his moment in the sun. Jon doesn't put down the undead dragon. Jon doesn't slay the undead dragon. Jon just hunkers down behind a rock and screams pointlessly. While Arya is the big hero. She's the one who ends up killing the Night King and in the process killing the dragon and saving everyone all in the same go. And I'm fine with that, actually. I didn't mind the fact that she was the hero. I do mind the fact that Jon was pointless through the whole episode. It was like, what the hell was the purpose of all of those shots with Jon, with him running around trying to valiantly get somewhere, only to end up hiding behind a rock, while Arya, whatever you want to call her, is the one who saves the day. I mean, at least let him kill the dragon first before she saves the day. It would have made far more sense that way. But I digress. Now, this is the third episode of the season, right? We are saving mankind from the dead. And it's only episode 3. Does that strike anyone as odd that the big evil is killed first? Is a road bump on the path to deal with Cersei? It makes no sense. But, I digress. So, things started going south with episode 3. Episode 4, I wasn't here nor there about episode 4. Nothing screamed horrid at me. It was just, another episode of this season. It was the transition between the really bad episode 3 and the really bad episode 5. I'm sorry, but I don't understand the thought process. Why are we going to take this character, and I'm talking about Daenerys Stormborn, who saved the Dothraki, who saved the Marine, who was the breaker of chains, who waded through fire to become the Dragon Queen, who has done all of this stuff, and always with a sense of nobility and righteousness, a sense of cause. And even when she gets to Westeros, she wants to go straight to take back her throne. But she doesn't. She gets sidetracked to go north to fight the undead. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. She fights valiantly to save the human race from the undead. Loses a dragon in the process. She's down to one dragon. Her army is far weakened and crippled. Cersei's got a fresh army, and things are looking bad. But they're not. So, what were the writers thinking? You have one scorpion, one lone scorpion that takes out a dragon earlier in the episodes. Then you have a fleet of scorpions that take out another dragon. But yet that same fleet, plus a bunch of scorpions on the castle walls, can't even come near close to taking out the dragon they know is coming. Plot armor, anyone? Of the most magnificent kind? I mean, I'm sorry, but how about that scene where the gate is completely obliterated? I understand dragonfire is hot, pretty powerful, probably it doesn't feel very good on the skin, but to completely obliterate a castle wall, a castle gate, we're talking a several feet thick stone just blown away like it's paper. I call BS. Dragon couldn't do that. But in this show, we watch the dragon pretty much decimate all of the castle walls, destroy all of the scorpions, which leads to the weakened army being able to walk in and win the battle in a matter of like 7 minutes. From when she started diving on the fleet to when the army breached the walls and the bells rang, it took 7 minutes. And then our Daenerys Stormborn, the breaker of chains, the mother of dragons, the person who did everything that was asked of her to protect the human race by facing off against the Night King. This person that so many people have seen something in, and we're not talking idiots either. We're talking about some of the best members of the cast. Tyrion believes in this crazy woman. What was his name? The little bear's uncle. Her original hand, who fell in love with her. He believed in her. He was a good man. Tyrion was a good man. lots of good people believed in her, but they were all wrong. They were all completely blind to the psychopath that she was. I mean, we're not talking a charismatic, um, power mongery person. We're talking a psychopath. I When the bells went off, you had millions of children, women, the helpless running through the streets, and she just ran around obliterating them all in a very methodical way, up and down every single street. She didn't miss a single building. She burned the entire city of millions of people. Now, I'd like to wonder if Adolf Hitler was sitting on the dragon at that point in time, if he would have done the same thing. Or would he have just flown to the Jewish houses? Or Joseph Stalin, would he have done the same thing? I mean, there's a difference between being a charismatic, power-mongery figure who wants absolute control and being Hannibal Lecter, to being somebody who takes complete joy in killing. So, when did Daenerys Stormborn suddenly turn into a psychopath? I mean, if she was a psychopath, none of these very credible people would have followed her. But she all of a sudden became a psychopath and went running around murdering people. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew she was murdering people. She knew she didn't have to do that. I'm sorry. That that right there was the worst thing that Game of Thrones ever could have done. Visually, it was cool, sure. I mean, watching the dragon run around, burn everything up, it was a pretty interesting thing. Uh, if you're mind dead, if you don't take into consideration what's actually happening, and you're just wanting to see a dragon run around and burn things, then it was a pretty cool episode to watch. But if you thought about the episode in any logical way, it was a pretty stupid episode to watch. So our one of our characters, Daenerys Stormborn, went from being borderline, um, what's the word I'm looking for? A borderline control freak. So we she always had a sense of purpose in right and wrong, but we always knew that she had a little bit of an issue with control, right? And we saw that issue boil over with killing Varys. So that's all they really needed to do was kill Varys. Or perhaps after the bell rang, she could have flown off and decided to blow away the keep because Cersei was in it. And in doing so, maybe have killed a lot more people than needed to be. But we took things completely out of the believable. So it's believable that she could have gone a little batshit, but she completely went psychopathic. I mean, she just skipped a little bit batshit and just went right off the complete deep end to never be returned from. I'm sorry, that doesn't fit with the story. She wasn't there yet. But it was convenient because obviously they're trying to build up for a Stark, well, not necessarily, well, a Stark versus crazy dragon woman type of fight. But now I have another question, another thing to ponder. What was Brandon doing while millions of people were dying senselessly? You know, the the crow, the seer of all, the person that knows everything that has happened and will happen, the person who can go into the minds of animals and take them over. What was he doing sitting around up in Winterfell while this dragon was flying around murdering people? Could he have not entered the dragon's mind and stopped the carnage? Would have made sense, right? To save a few million people, I would have done it. I, but you know what? Keep that in mind, because I have a feeling that something like that could still happen in the future. Because, when the crazy dragon lady comes for the Starks, when it's their castle on the line, maybe Brandon will decide to use his mind powers on the dragon. Or maybe Jon will just say enough's enough and tell the dragon to stop because he's a Targaryen too, and the dragon will be confused. He won't know which Targaryen to listen to. Does he listen to mom or dad? There's several possibilities on how the dragon could be dealt with in this next upcoming episode, but obviously we know where we've gone to. Daenerys Stormborn is now the bad guy, and she's, the new Night King, if you will, and she's the big evil that we have to stop in the next episode. The only question is it going to be Arya that stops her? Is it going to be Brandon that stops her? Or is it going to be Jon Snow that stops her? And then, when she's dealt with and she's out of the way, is Jon going to want the throne after all of that? Arya, I'm sure she has no interest in becoming queen or empress. Brandon, he's obviously the three-eyed raven. He could care less about that. Then you have Sansa, of course, the queen of the north. Is she going to want to be the queen of everything? Maybe. Maybe she ends up remarrying Tyrion, and Tyrion and her reunite the Seven Kingdoms, and Tyrion is the king and she's the queen, and everyone lives happily ever after, just as soon as Arya, Brandon, and Jon somehow dispatch the crazy dragon lady. But really, seriously, this season is terrible right now. I don't even, I can't even fathom how anyone can think otherwise at this point. Like I said, I've been a devout Game of Thrones fan. I've watched every single episode, and I'm appalled with where this season has gone. It's like they haven't thought about anything. It's like they're not using their brains whatsoever. It reminds me of the end of Lost. I don't know if any of you have watched Lost, but Lost was a pretty decent show for a while, and then the last season came along, and well, It started to go downhill before the last season, but the last season, the end of Lost was just like, yeah, you were lost. It was the most pointless ending in the world, and it may have been the worst end of a show ever until now. I think Game of Thrones is going for the new record of having the worst last season of any show with the worst ending of any show. I think Game of Thrones is going to be they want the record books for everything, for the greatest and worst show of all time, all at the same time. Uh, that's the only thing I. Oh, man, this season is bad. All I can say is the writer, he better not write this crap because, man, I'd like to know how. I might even read his books if he ever finishes them. If he ever finishes them, I might want to read what his take of the ending was, because this show was awesome and it was based on his books, and so obviously I liked his concept of a world. But at this point, this isn't coming out of his books. This is like ad-libbing, and it's very bad ad-libbing. I'm not impressed. Yeah. Anyway, that's I guess that's the point of this episode. I just wanted to vent about how horrible Game of Thrones has been this season. It's just got me mind boggled. I'm so disappointed. Yeah, this is hashtag disappointing. Anyway, I'm James Johnson. This is my channel. This is my content. If you're enjoying my content, please leave a like and subscribe. And until next time, all, peace.